GM. GM. So I covered this path yesterday, mentioned it in the swing trader chat, and covering Pepe. I don't know if it's going to go from here. There's also a decent chance that it grinds to the highs. It's followed this path pretty well so far. The point isn't really for it to be a perfect representation, because you do have liquidity above here, and quite often these phases can just chop and chop and chop till they grab the liquidity and then drop. And it also isn't a guarantee it will drop, and it's certainly not a guarantee that if it does drop to there that it will bounce hard. But the level I'm looking at, if I zoom out, I'm looking at that level for a retest at some point, because it's the old all-time high. It's held a couple times. We've moved away from it, but some positions are building. And this consolidation here, I think, can get swept. I probably, if I had to guess, I would probably say Pepe can go higher first. But for buying, I do think that at some point in the next, couple of weeks, it's going to dip back into that 11.011 area, the old March all-time high. And I think that will represent a decent place to potentially get long. There are also bear cases where if Bitcoin goes lower and breaks to new lows, and Ethereum goes itself to new lows, which I don't think will happen immediately this week, but it might happen around or post ETF launch, Pepe can just go lower itself entirely, because this isn't a very bullish structure. It's definitely losing momentum to the downside, right? A bigger collapse, swept, retest. It looks like it's trying to bottom out, but there isn't a massive amount of bullish impulse here. You would want to see something similar to what Pepe did over here, where it forms a bottom, it has a proper rally up, then a decent pullback to form a higher low. So the equivalent of that would see Pepe rallying up to the 13, 14 area, then having a pullback and bang that dip. We're not in a bullish structure yet on Pepe. You zoom out to the daily, you look at the daily and the daily bands, looking like a very promising setup where you've got a nice deep wick below, couple retests, it's holding, it could be forming a bottom, but it is below the bands. The bands are still red. It hasn't flipped them green. Just like over here, the bands are still red. Once it flipped them green, got a pull back into the bands and it held. So I think Pepe is potentially, if the market shapes up well, Pepe's a good one. But for me, I'm still waiting because I do see downside risk. And I would need to see a retest and hold for me to get long on it. Now, Bowden has started to put in another potential bottom. And it started off well, but the last 4-hour close has given me a pause. So bands have flipped green, that's good. There is, though, a reversal on the 4-hour, a reversal candle. And you can see that here, where it's pushed up into this previous resistance and currently has a rejection on the 4-hour, and that might lead to a pull back deeper. Now, if it does pull back below the bands, then even though the bands went green, that would be more like a trap and could actually lead you into another bottom, another push lower to frustrate people yet again, and then a really strong rally off that. I think there's a very sharp squeeze and rally coming on Bowden, but it's a very hot coin, right? Even though people are, depressed about Bowden and saying Bowden's shit and Bowden's dead and it's down 93%, and all of that's real, all of that's true. It's still got a lot of mind share. And what that means is, when the rally comes, and I do think a rally will come, it'll be a big, big rally. So we're down 93% off the highs. But at every stage, people are trying to catch the bottom and catch the bottom and catch the bottom and catch the bottom. And this is probably the closest that it has been. This is the most, it was at least until this 4-hour candle. This is the highest probability of a bottom so far. That candle, though, is not what I would want to see for immediate continuation. If you're looking for a strong squeeze, you don't really want to see that. And, as people keep trying to, there's $10 million of volume on some days on Bowden, which is high for a coin that looks like this, that people would expect is dead, there's still plenty of volume being traded. And that tells me that obviously the majority of people are trying to get long on Bowden, right? There's sellers. It's not like people are selling an infinite amount of Bowden. People think that this is all the same whales, just continually dumping and dumping and dumping and dumping. Not really. When you look at the wallets, like a lot of the bigger holders have already exited and they're not going to continue selling 93% down. A lot of these failed rallies are people who try to FOMO in and try to get long and try to get long, and then it pulls back and they're the ones capitulating, right? They're buying here and they're selling here. They're buying here and they're selling here. They're buying here and they're selling here. It's a short-term traders flip-flopping market. So I would, again, just hold off because of that 4-hour candle. That's a big rejection and reversal into resistance. If it had have broken above there and pulled back, to me that would be fine. I'd be looking at a higher low to form if it had have broken above that structure first, but it hasn't. It's currently just up into resistance once again. And leading into the debates, people think, oh, well, Bowden should be bullish into the debates. That's true. But like I said on daily levels, if Bitcoin and ETH are not playing ball this week, I think, again, the market is going to remain weak. And altcoins in particular are kind of friendless. They don't have much bid. There's not much demand there. Because I think the market as a whole is waiting for a signal from the majors that we're actually going to enter a proper rally, not just bounces in a decline. Right? And if you look at Bitcoin here, it's really clear. For alts to rally, we need to see a Bitcoin bottom and a Bitcoin rally, like a Bitcoin move that actually develops into something more. So Bitcoin over here, it chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped, and then it broke and started to trend higher. And that's when alts started to make a move, right? Whenever Bitcoin was actually moving up. So the next time you would see broad altcoin movements would be when Bitcoin's actually able to start to rally up, right? And trend up and trend up and trend up. And at this phase, you'd see some nice altcoin relief. But of course, as you look at this, that's not the case right now. We're still in a 4-hour downtrend. It's still very much a bearish structure on that time frame. You can have a squeeze up, you can go down, you can go to another low. And then that could be the low, just one more that people don't expect, right? Or people are, oh, this must be the bottom this time, and it's not, and the next one is. It gets to that point where people think, well, this level's definitely broken, we're definitely bearish, it has to go lower, and then it rallies. But the rally off the lows for BTC so far has been pretty, mixed. As I look back to January, it's similar to that January move. We did the same thing in January. Kind of just grinded off the lows and consolidated, and then that big impulse. But it was that impulse candle that told you Bitcoin had a few weeks now to run. So if Bitcoin were to do the same and have a proper move and hold it, that could be where you would see some actual weeks of rally. You might see 1 or 2 weeks where Bitcoin moves back towards the 70 area and maybe beyond. And I think that's the best time to be looking at altcoins for a lower time frame swing position. So right now, today, I don't see any confirmation from my systems that I want to get long on Bowden because of that 4-hour rejection candle. And Pepe, it's just a little bit too soon as well in terms of this Pepe setup. Pepe has it's building a nice base here. It's got a better structure than most. The 4-hour bands are back to green again. And I think if Ethereum continues higher, Pepe is in a good setup to have its own push. But a lot of these are just, again, zoom them out. They're moving in the right direction. But as of right now, I wouldn't say that we have clear relief or room for continued upside. We're still in this summer phase where rallies fail because there's just not enough, there's really not enough people, not enough demand, not enough interest. And that can sustain for longer than you would think. So I think we're right on the edge where some good trades can present themselves. And I think today, going into tomorrow, we'll set up the direction for the rest of the week. It's a Sunday and we do have a tendency to squeeze out shorts on a Sunday. If you look at BTC, we had a green Saturday, just about, and we're having a green Sunday again. But this has been a very, very common theme. Saturday, Sunday green last weekend, and boom, 5 red days in a row. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. These green weekends, Saturday, Sunday green, have literally just led to reversals the next week. It's like the market gets a little bit of relief on the weekends because there's no TradFi selling, and then as soon as TradFi comes back in Monday, boom, down we go. So is that going to continue? I mean, I would always lean towards the continuation of what's been happening until something changes. So, yeah, I don't think there's a rush. I would rather wait for clear momentum and then ride it after, and I don't think we have that yet. So that's where I'm at now. GM. See you later on Weekly Outlook. GM.